Well, I started racing the Mustangs in what was the early Trans Am, and we were down at the ranch down in the Big Bend country. A friend of mine and I had this 150,000 acres of rocks down there, and we decided to do two things to advertise the fact that we were going to sell it. And that was take one of the Mustangs and call it the Terlingua Racing Team, and the other one was to have the World Championship chili cook-off. We wanted to sell it, and we asked a friend of ours what we could do to get rid of all them rocks, and he said, "Give me a couple weeks," and he came back and said, "We're going to have the world's first world champion chili cook-off." So those two things kind of gained national publicity, and 3 or 4 or 5 years later we sold the ranch, which by that time I didn't want to sell it, but we did anyway. But still to this day you read about it. I still put on the World Championship chili cook-off. They still have two the same day down in Terlingua, a town of 3 people, and they're still fighting. And I went off, and we have it in Nevada or some of the western towns. But the Terlingua Racing Team still gets a lot of publicity. Bill came up with the idea of some kind of cockeyed rabbit, and the paint schemes. He's the artist in the thing, and he laid out all of that, and we painted the cars in the colors that he told us to, and he came up with all the decals and so forth. So that's where it all started. That's where it still is today. Oh yeah, I'm surprised that I'm still here, much less that it's still here. And it's something that I guess will be around for a long time, because it seemed to have a little catch to it that became kind of a buzzword in the racing world. The first thing people said, "What the heck is Terlingua?" And most people don't know that means 3 tongues. And I don't even know exactly what it means myself. The name of this ranch was a Chiricahua ranch because it had a lot of Chiricahua Indians on it back in the 17 and 1800s. But we changed the name of it to Terlingua Ranch. So naturally the racing team, we called it Terlingua, because I don't think it'd sound very good to call it the Chiricahua Racing Team. So Bill came up with all the stuff. He's the guru as far as making that famous.
We had a couple of ideas. If we're going to talk about Terlingua, first of all, this area of rocks that we bought had very few things in the way of critters other than rattlesnakes, cougars, mule deer, and rabbits. And there were more rabbits, and they're fast, fleet of foot. So I thought, well, we'll make a logo rather than a prancing horse. We'll do a logo that's got a rabbit on it, and it's got a little bit of heraldry in this thing, but the rabbit is on it, and then there's the sunshine on the logo that indicates the country, which it gets very hot, 115 to 120 in the summertime, but it's very dry. And then there's 3 feathers on there. The 3 feathers.
Now don't tell me you thought of all this when you were doing that.
Well, I'm getting to the part you came up with. But these 3 feathers indicate the 3 tribes that lived in the area, which were the Apaches, Comanches, and Kiowa. Out of that, living on Dirty Woman Creek, they came up with one language, which was Terlingua, and that's where
3
they
tongues.
were Cinnabar. Now, he asked me one time, he said, all this makes sense for the logo, but what is the 1860? Now, the rabbit's holding his hands up. but at the top of his hand is the number 1860, and being fleet of foot myself, I thought, well, that's the first year they had a race down there. And he said, race with what? And I said, do it for ore wagons. Cinnabar was mined in the area. And
biggest mine in the world.
Absolutely.
Biggest mercury mine. Yeah.
But the Cinnabar mines are now closed up, of course. Some of them are boarded over, and they've become the world's deepest
Some of
cities.
them, yeah. Some of them are boarded over.
And there's been people
And
lost.
yeah, there's
but I do think that the logo itself, probably the most important thing, people ask me, says, why is the rabbit holding his paw up like that? And he's saying, hold the peppers in my chili.
Corvette came out in '53, and we came out with the Cobra in '62, which was less than 10 years, a little bit less than the Corvette had been out. And I wanted to build. I'd always wanted to build my own car, and so chassis became available, engine became available from Ford. I've been working with General Motors off and on, and nothing was really coming of that. So I put that deal together. Had to move to California because that's where the magazines were, that's where the hot rodders were that could make it work. And after we'd been in business a couple of years and started beating the Corvettes, which was my original intention to try to accomplish. And Icoca called me one day. The people at Ford had the Mustang was very, very popular, but it was a secretary's car, sold for $23.95, little 6-cylinder engine, and they wanted to put a V8 in it, and they wanted a sportier version that had wider appeal, especially to the performance enthusiasts. And I thought, man, you can't make a mule outrun a racehorse, and I didn't want to do it. But Ray Geddes, who was a friend of mine, who's a lawyer and CPA, and had the impossible job of trying to keep me straight in the business world, because I don't care about business. It's just an unnecessary evil built on greed as far as I'm concerned, and I wanted to build cars. And anyway, he says, Shelby, we've got to do this because Icoca wants it. And I said, well, okay, you guys put a budget together. So we put the budget together, and we needed $15,000 to build a prototype. And we sent it back in to Icoca, and his bean counter got a hold of it and gave us $1,500 to build the first one. So we, through a little fiddling, built the first one, and immediately went out and won the first race that we got into with it. And we thought we'd build a couple of hundred of them, and the first thing you know, we got 500 orders the first year. The next year we got 1,700 orders, I think, and wound up for years building 5,000 of them a year. And could have sold more of them if we, but I wanted to keep the organization small. I wanted to have an organization based on racing and sell street cars that you could take to the racetrack, and I wanted to keep it small. So after a few years, performance went away because emissions and safety became the big thing. And if you remember, during the 70s, there was no performance. So I started spending a lot of time in Africa. And Bunky Knudsen came along that had worked for General Motors, and he was very upset with me because I'd taken his little Corvette and we had peed on it, and he didn't appreciate that. Didn't appreciate me doing that, or our organization doing that. It was a lot of wonderful hot rodders that did all this, and hot rodders, by the way, from all over the world, from Japan, from Italy, from Switzerland, from France, from England. We attracted the best people in the world. They wanted to work for us because it was exciting during those times. I had 6 racing teams that were racing every weekend somewhere, and so suddenly I woke up one morning and said, "Blunky Knudsen, new president of Ford." Well, I'll tell you that first thing he did is he shafted old Shelby. So I knew that performance was going away anyway. It had a couple more years with the Trans Am, but I never did care, much for the Trans Am. After we'd won Le Mans, after we won the World Championship, that seemed kind of anticlimactic to me. It seemed anticlimactic to our guys, and we were ready to fold our tent anyway because we saw emissions and safety coming along. But that's the way the Mustang came about, and as you say, the new 2007 Mustang that'll be out a year from now with the Shelby name on it looks a lot like the old one. Well, in 1960, they told me I had 5 years to live, maybe. I had hereditary heart problems. And I figured, so what? I might as well try to build a car that I dreamed of. And like my doctors still say, every year, every 5 years, there's a new pill or a new operation. They kept me going. And I never thought that I'd be here. In fact, I'm on about 32 pills a day. I just got 4 added to it the last couple of weeks. And I'm a walking chemical depository. But I never dreamed that I'd still be in the business and working with Ford again at 82 years old. And I couldn't be happier. I don't have the physical capabilities of having racing teams and all of the traveling that goes along with it, but I have enough input into it that we have a wonderful fellow from Vietnam called Hao Tai Tang that is in charge of SVT, special vehicles at Ford. And I'm enjoying working with him very much. And I always loved automobiles. My dad loved automobiles. He was a rural mail carrier, came to Dallas and was a postal clerk. And I was always kind of a renegade, driving too fast when I was a kid. I just loved cars. But then I went off, when I graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School, I delivered packages for Doc Harold's drugstore on my motorcycle right after I got out. And one night, it was raining like heck, and somebody ordered a package of cigarettes. And they were always ordering packages of cigarettes, and they didn't tip you when you took them. And I rode through this rain, and I slid across Gaston Avenue and Abrams Road there, upside down on my motorcycle, and I turned around to Ace Hughes, who also delivered there, and I said, "Ace, I'm going to the Air Force." He says, "I'll go with you in the morning if they'll send me to Philippines." I said, "They ain't gonna send you to Philippines." I said, I just hope I can get in the Air Force. So I did that, and the first thing you know, I was driving a fire truck down at Randolph Field, and they came along with a thing for us uneducated to be pilots called sergeant pilots, enlisted pilots in the Air Force. Chuck Yeager and Bob Hoover, and I fell into that, and I became a pilot. We'd go out and fly and then go wash pots and pans at night. They finally commissioned us, but we had to pull KP. I got married in 1943 and had a daughter by 9 months and 8 days later. And when I got out of the Air Force, I knew that I had to go to work. And I figured race driving was something that I really shouldn't try to get into, and although I would have liked to. So I tried 5 or 6 businesses, and I'm a terrible businessman because I don't have the attention span to sit and put up with all that greedy garbage that goes along with it. But I've had to, over the years, be a little more patient with it. But about 1951 or 2, I said, man, I don't like to get up in the morning. I don't like the life that I'm living. I'm going out and see if I can drive race cars. And I had a friend named Ed Wilkins here in Dallas that had an MGTC, and it was about, you talk about something that been beat up with an ugly stick, you know, they were ugly. But we took it to a race in Norman, Oklahoma, and I won the race and turned around and beat the bigger cars in another race. And I thought, man, this is fun. 3 years later, I got lucky and went to Argentina, and I met a guy named John Wire who ran Aston Martin. And at that time, they were looking for Americans that had a little bit of ability driving race cars, because if we drove their cars in Europe, they were trying to sell them over here. It was shortly after the war. So we had some American drivers, Phil Hill, Dan Gurney, and myself, that went to Europe. Now you don't have any American drivers over there. You got to take $10 million with you before you get into Formula One cars, which I think is a disgrace. But anyway, driving race cars was not my priority. I wanted to build my own car. In fact, I nearly got run off from the house here in Dallas from Ed Wilkins and I trying to build us a sport car in my garage over in University Park at night. And my wife finally chased us out with that thing, and I didn't get around to building anything for 6 or 7 years after that. But that was always my ambition, to see if I could learn enough, and I was very lucky to be able to survive driving race cars while I learned how those little companies worked, Ferrari, Maserati, Aston Martin, the smaller companies in Europe. And then when my heart got so bad that I knew that I couldn't drive race cars anymore, and I won the national championship in 1960, the road racing championship. And I just said the last race this season, that's it. Never said anything to anybody, never got in another race car. Oh, I never got in a couple of vintage races, but I just walked away from it and decided that I would go into business trying to build my own my own car. It wasn't tough, because I'd had 10 years of living out of a suitcase every weekend somewhere, and it's a horrible life. And it's fun when you win a race, you get a high, but my idea of going somewhere every weekend is not that way I wanted to live. Then I got to building the cars, and I had to travel 500,000 miles a year for the next 6 years, travel more than I did when I was driving race cars. But that wasn't so bad because I was doing exactly what I wanted to do, and we were winning national championships.
Mustang TV. We'll be right back.
Let it go to our head, and we thought that let's go over and try to beat Ferrari, and we put probably the most unaerodynamic car together, the Daytona Coupe, which was a beautiful car, but it took us 6 months to make the thing work, and Phil Remington and Bill Collins and the guys that made it work were magicians because it tries to fly. It'd make a better airplane than it did a race car. But anyway, we went over and beat Ferrari, but that's because he was hung up on these smaller engines, which the Europeans, gasoline was $3 or $4 a gallon even back in the 50s. So they, instead of revolting like they should, they just went ahead and paid it and built these little engines, and that's where I had the idea, like Sidney Allard had done. If you got this hole there that got those little 1918 four-cylinder taxi cab engines in it, an American V8 will fit right in there too. Well, I put a deal together with Ford and AC Cars, and you want to get into this now?
Sure.
And AC had lost their engine, and this was a 30-year-old chassis then, 2 buggy springs tied down with a trace chain. I said, we put this Ford new little V8 engine in it, and little did I realize all the things that you have to do, and stupidly, instead of redesigning a new chassis, we took this old 30-year-old chassis and kept improving it. We wound up, didn't have a single nut and bolt in it that had come from AC Cars originally. But we won the national championship 7 or 8 years, and the world championship with these archaic things, and it went on from there, and I quit during the 70s. And then, as I told you, Bunky Knudsen put a stop to my relationship with Ford. And Icoca was fired by Henry, and he went to Chrysler. And he called me one day and says, hey, I need some help. And I says, that might be fun. So I went up there and says, what do we have to build a sport car out of, or a performance car? I went to the head of engineering and says, we got a 2.2-liter engine that puts out 90 horsepower and has a 4-speed transmission that is cable shifted. I thought, ooh, that's going to be a tough one. But we put this thing together with the help of Tom Gale and a lot of wonderful people there at Chrysler, and we sold 8,000 of those things the first year. And the end result of 12 years there was the Viper. So that time wasn't wasted. I went on to build the best sport car they ever built out in Las Vegas. John Rock was a friend of mine that ran Oldsmobile, and they had this wonderful little V8 engine. And John and I sat down, let's put this sport car together. So we started working on it, and we were coming along just fine, and the same old thing happened. A guy named Zarella that peddled glasses at Bosch and Loam had come to work at General Motors, and he ran John Rock off right after we had just started into production. But we built 250 of these things, and a lot of people in the world think it's a big failure. And let me tell you, the other day we blew one of these new C6 Corvettes off like it's tied to a post out there with a 6-year-old car in Las Vegas. So we still build old Cobras out there, about 3 or 4 a week. And I got a new idea of how to take the old Cobra and blow the Enzo off with it. So we're working on a couple of prototypes out there with that now. So now we're setting up the production line at Ford instead of building it on the outside, which it's a hard way to make money like we did years ago, and Celine and Roush and 15 other guys are building special versions of the Mustang now. And I turned down an offer of $21 million a year in my pocket to work with another company that wanted to build a Shelby Mustang, but I decided I am much better off working with Ford in the building of this. So here I am trotting down the street. We're building another one, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a sensational car for the simple reason it's going to be the right price, and it's going to have an engine that really is a sensational engine, and we'll be the only one that has it. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a year away, but we thought we were going to try to build 7,000 or 8,000 a year, and my God, the orders for the thing flooded in, and there's no telling how many of them that will sell.
MustangTV. We'll be right back.
That's the thing that tickles me. 8 and 9-year-old kids, I hear from them more than I hear from the baby boomers, which my kids are 60 years old now, and I still call them kids. But it's absolutely amazing how many little kids. And when I go to these functions, God. I'm thrilled with that because, you know, at 82 years old to have the kids, the kids are so much more developed now at 8 and 10 years old they were when I grew up because of television, the computers, and I saw a television show the other day in the wilds of Africa where I lived. It showed a schoolhouse, a schoolroom, I mean, with 25 little African kids there on their computer just typing away, and you can just imagine what the world's going to be like 25 years from now. And I'm still amazed that people even know who I am. I don't ever think about that because I just think about the next car I want to build.
You get more out of building cars, I think, than you ever got out of driving them, don't you? Developing them.
Sure. I had fun driving them. I don't want to take anything away from that, but it wasn't my ambition to try to win the world championship. I'd rather drive for a guy like John Wire, who I learned a lot more from than I ever would have driving. Ferrari came to me 4 times and wanted me to drive for him. And everybody says, oh, you never turn down Ferrari. Well, the easiest thing in the world for me to turn down because I wasn't trying to be the world champion in the first place. And I knew that I have a lot of respect for Enzo Ferrari, so I'm not here to say a bad word about him. But he was very difficult to work for. If Juan Fangio couldn't get along with him, then it wasn't a place for me. And I never regretted that I didn't. I probably could have won the world championship because I never saw anybody in a race car that an equal race car that I didn't figure that I could hold my own with. Maybe Fangio. I take that back. Fangio was one of the truly unique and great race drivers that ever lived. They try to compare Senna and Fangio and Schumacher and all of that. You can't do that because they're different eras. But he was a friend of mine in later years, and I think that, in my opinion, I know that he was the greatest race driver of my era that ever lived. There are a lot of good ones. I consider myself as good as I wanted to be, but making cars, I get a bigger thrill. I didn't know it till not long ago, and I built 135 different models of cars. And if somebody'd asked me how many I did, I said maybe 15. I don't even remember what all of them were. And then it showed me this guy put a deal together of all the prototypes and all the ones that I built, and then never went into production. But every one of them have been a lot of fun. And people say, "What is your favorite car?" I don't have a favorite car. It's the next one I build. The one that I dream of building is my favorite car.
Mustang TV. We'll be right back. Mustang TV. Welcome back.
Car. It's the next one I build. The one that I dream of building is my favorite car. Doesn't always turn out to be a success, but that's not my criterion in life to try to be a great success. I want to be able to set a goal, see if I can build this and accomplish that goal. And I'm out there 15 years from now. I'm dreaming of what I can build. I'm going to go horizontal before that. I don't worry about that either. But I ain't going to jump out in front of a truck. I just want to build my cars, and I'm so lucky to still be alive at 82, because I've been sick since I was 35 years old. But another pill, another operation, keep kicking. Without a doubt, the most important thing in life is follow your passion. There's so many people out there that I really and truly, I can name you executive vice presidents in Detroit that make millions of dollars a year. And it's so sad to see them go and get masters in business and go to design schools. I've got so many friends that are great designers that go to Art Center, go to the design schools, go to work in Detroit, and think they're going to design cars and wind up designing door handles for 50 years. I never want to fall in that category. I see so many of those people, and you see people every day that don't do what they want to do. And it's a lot easier to make enough money to get by on doing what you want to do than it is to fall in that rut that so many people fall in. So that's my idea. But I ain't the smartest guy that goes around the block. But that's my idea of if I had my life to live over, I would have done it a lot earlier.
Mustang TV. We'll be right back.